lived with me a long time.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We're speaking with Thelbert Hunt and his wife Ann East.
And East Hunt.
Ann East Hunt. And we're on Old New Road, over in the old section where I grew up. And you're going to share your good memories with us living here.
I was married before, though. I was Ann East Sowers Hunt. I was married to Claude Sowers. He used to be up here somewhat. He used to work at Walker Gordon.
Musician?
Is that still over there?
No, it's not.
The first time I went up in that place, I slid down that banister.
No, it's not there anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Cows aren't on the merry-go-round anymore. The roto-actor's gone.
I didn't think that would ever close up.
I helped to build that place over there.
Did you? Is that how you came up here from Virginia?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Well, that was during the Depression,
Mm-hmm.
29.
Well, some of you should have known my first husband, Claude Sowers.
Yes, I remember him.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
I thought so.
Yeah. He used to have a violin and
Oh, yeah.
he used to play the violin. Really.
Musician.
Yeah.
He
Mm-hmm.
could play anything had strings on it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I used to play too. Did you ever remember seeing me play the guitar and sing out at different places?
I used to come over and play with Teddy here, and I used to hear you sometimes.
I used to play guitar. I used to sing all the Johnny Cash songs and Hank Williams.
Was that when we lived over on across the tracks?
Both. Both.
Were you in the gang that were going to pull the Halloween trick on me and turn the outside toilet over?
Was that the big house on the corner?
No, that was this side of the church now, across the tracks now.
Across the street from the church?
No, down this.
No, I remember doing the one up by right next to the firehouse. We did that a couple of times when we were kids.
What in the order they were turn toilets over?
I got to tell you about this one.
That's
because
so stupid.
I don't know. I think I don't recall just who it was that was in the gang, but I had a scarecrow out in the back, a garden out there.
Uh-huh.
And I went out that night. I was tipped off that they were going to be parading around that night. So I went out and removed the scarecrow and went out and I stood there with my arms out, just still, just like the scarecrow.
You make a good scarecrow, huh?
And they came creeping up,
And he grabbed one
and after it got dark, they came over. And they were creeping, talking real light and easy. And one of them got pretty close and says, "Hey," he said, that don't look like a scarecrow." "Oh, yes it is," the other one said. And they got a little closer and I reached out and grabbed two. Just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was before my time, though.
What a surprise.
Oh.
And then...
What is your name?
Tony. Butch Sanawasa.
Oh. Oh, boy, I've forgotten everything I ever knew.
No,
I
I
never
guess
thought I'd ever be in this condition.
that must have been Ronnie's.
Sometimes I pray for God
Age,
to take
yeah,
me
that was an
away
older-
from
Ronnie's
Right.
group, it must have been.
Right, right. They were older.
I can't even
They
walk
pulled
across this
another
floor.
trick on me too. I was working at night, and I was sleeping in the daytime, and they came up, and they thought they was going upstairs, that in the place I knew over there, to get Ronnie out of bed. And it was me that was in the bed, So as they came up, I was asleep.
Show him this picture.
And they came up and they got around the bed and pulled the covers off. And I raised up and I was so surprised,
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw me, they didn't walk down the steps, they fell down the steps, getting out of it.
I want you to see he died.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Susie. Did you ever remember Susie?
Yeah, I remember Susie.
Well,
Yeah,
he
she
named that
was from
dog.
Austria.
Yeah, well, he named that dog Susie.
Oh.
That's Rolling Susie. Dog Susie. I don't have a picture of her, I don't think, anywhere.
You have somebody else up there.
When did you come to Monmouth Junction? What year?
Well, my first time here was right during the Depression, right after high school. Three of us, Jip Wellington and Herman Boxdale and myself came up, and
That's where,
I've got to tell you about that trip because
that's where I met him.
we were on the Southern Railroad. They were so far behind that day. We waited there for about, I think about 7 or 8 hours before the train got into the little town where we left from, Gretna, Virginia. And we were all tired out before we got on that. And then I thought we would never get to Washington because that train would stop at every little crossing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally got into Washington and had to get on to the Pennsylvania Railroad then. And we switched and got on that. And just in no time we were up here, you see. And
Is that when you first met me?
no, you wasn't here then. You was in Virginia at that
Oh,
time.
I hadn't come up here to live.
No. And
I don't remember where you was
So,
when I first met you.
we got off at Plainsboro. And Jip, he always told that tale every time he would mention us arriving here. He said he wouldn't even want to get off of that train if I didn't get off. And, you know, just, we were young, you know. And
Well, that's when
they had, his father was up here too.
Well, that's when I
he was-
first met you, too. You walked in my house over in Plainsboro, and I was laying
No,
on the couch.
no, not that time.
Well, I don't remember.
No, that was,
That's the first time I ever
there's quite
saw
a few
you.
things that happened between that time
Well,
and the second time I
that's
came.
the first time I ever met you.
Let's get on with this now.
Well, you get
Well,
you know,
anyway,
tangled up.
They had a job up here before they came. I didn't have a job. So Mr. Chamberlain over in Plainsboro, we boarded there with him for a few days, and I was still applying for a job over there, and then I couldn't find anybody that except Mr. Oakson. He was one of the contractors on that building over there.
Well, if he don't know any of these people you're talking about, that's not interesting to
Now, we
me.
just want to know how he came to live in South Brunswick. So
Oh, yeah.
we're interested in
Oh,
how he got here.
I can
Well,
tell you
maybe I
right
must
where
go
I
through all
was.
this.
First time he ever walked in.
Anyway,
Then he boarded with me for
to
a
cut
while.
it short, I finally got work over there. And I stayed that summer. And I went back. And it was about, I took a trip out to Kansas, worked there through the wheat harvest out there. And then we came back, and that fall, that was several years later now I came back. It
I
must have
was
been
going to
about
tell you that was one of my
19
great
and-
adventures.
32, I guess it was.
Oh, I got
And,
some
Oh, I was acquainted with
good looking grandchildren.
South Brunswick the first trip I was here, because they had a bar across the street over here. And we would frequent the bar occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
From the boys would get together, you know. We'd go to this bar once in a while, or over to
Who
Preston
ran it
Junction.
then?
There was one.
Who
over there,
ran it
too.
then?
Santa Wasas.
Well,
That was
I lived on that street up there
Tony,
the other side of
Tony.
that bar.
Yeah.
That's not a bar room now, is it?
No, that's been out for
Well,
years.
I lived right up there
Well,
behind that.
we had a grand time though.
Yeah.
Us young fellas, you know, there was no restrictions on age then, you know.
Mhm.
And I was around 18, I guess.
You better
And-
shut up, you might tell something you don't want to tell.
No, I won't tell nothing. I don't have anything to hide.
Oh, yeah?
Nope. And then the second time I came back, I did a little rambling around down there.
I put that bed back
as I
for me
say,
to sleep on, but
a job out
I
in
feel better
Kansas,
upstairs in
worked
my
out
own bed.
there.
And I managed to get up the steps at night because I have a balance to the
Then,
pillow.
then I
I don't know how I ever got in this condition.
Then I had a job with other places down there. Just been a while to pick up work, you know.
Mhm.
There's not much work going on there.
You
So-
worked at the gatehouse for a while.
Then when I came back with another fella. We had an Oldsmobile, I believe it was.
Kenneth Ramsey.
Oldsmobile. And we took a trip uphill on that. And that's when we met, with you. We stopped in over there.
I know, and then you boarded there.
Yeah, and I worked that summer.
Did you ever know my first husband,
Mm-hmm.
Claude Howard?
Yes.
He
I-
was a
I
great
worked-
musician, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I worked that
He
summer.
taught me how to play the guitar, and I played around all over.
I worked that summer.
I used to sing all the Hank Williams songs and Johnny Cash songs.
Let me finish this now, please.
Well,
I went to-
Your tale's too long.
I worked over to the
I wish I had more company come
Walker
to see
Gordon
me.
Gatehouse.
Do you?
Yeah,
They,
I'd rather have
that
anybody
while
come.
that was operating there. I don't know whether you ever knew about that or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Gatehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And
Everybody knew about Plainsboro,
One,
knew about that.
winter, I worked in there. And I was washing dishes, and when they'd have a football game over there, everybody would have to get out and wait on the tables.
Gatehouse was a restaurant.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was right at the corner of Route 1 and Plainsboro Road.
Yeah.
I hear him tell those tales so much I get sick and tired.
Well,
We got to record it.
no,
Then you won't have to tell it
Yeah.
anymore. You can turn it on, Ann.
so
I'm gonna tell him
Then
something
I-
about
I,
that picture of Ronnie there. People, I'm glad he knew Ronnie, and Ronnie was a great old guy.
I worked at
He's
different,
my first child. He's my oldest son. Then I have one lives over in Kendall Park, Kitty Hunt.
now about that time is when you left Claude and went back to your mother down in Virginia. And so I stayed on there with him
You're making me get
until
blues.
things would get a little bit rough there.
I don't like to hear those
With,
things. It brings back too much memories
He
to
would
you.
bring some of his buddies in over there. I couldn't get much sleep because at that time I was working for a dairy farm over in Princeton.
Mm-hmm.
Not a farm, but
A man,
it was a dairy,
yeah.
Princeton Dairy. And I was working night delivering milk in Trenton. That was a hectic job.
I bet.
And things got too bad for me there with Claude because he was, you know,
Drank no whole
to,
lot.
come in and
He was a he
Really,
was a
things were
drunk,
really a
that's
mess.
what he was.
so then I got a place over on Route 1 with I can't think of the name now. Anyway, I stayed there. In the meantime, you came back and we got acquainted there.
I know where I was when I first met you. I was
Yeah.
laying on the couch over in Plainsboro where I live.
Yeah, and,
I want to show this man something right here.
well,
If you will shut up for a minute.
Okay.
Now, this is Claude's oldest daughter. Now, she's a beautiful girl, too. That's my
Mhm.
granddaughter.
Mhm.
That's Claudine.
Uh-huh.
They named her after
Yep.
him, Claudine.
Beautiful girl.
Yes, she is. She's,
then, of course, she got a divorce.
who she got? Who?
You got the divorce. You got a divorce.
Oh, yeah.
And so well then we went visiting your sister down in
Maryland.
Jefferson, Maryland.
That's why we got married.
And we got licensed there and got married there. That was about a year later. And then I came back.
What'd that do with
Evelyn
her?
Pinnell, we knew Evelyn Pinnell.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And she had gotten a place for us over on Hillside Avenue. Mrs. Ray rented a place partially furnished.
You remember Mrs. Pete used to run a store over there? You don't? Yeah.
Let me go on
Well,
with
I think
this.
you're getting tired of hearing that long tale.
No, this is in South Brunswick now. We're
Right.
talking about. That's what we're getting
Mhm.
around to. And
I know if he is dying.
so we moved in over there. That house was right next to, they built a telephone exchange next door to where I was living. A small telephone exchange. You remember it?
Yes.
That was for the new dial tone, wasn't it? The new dial telephones?
It might have been, I don't know, but this was, I wasn't acquainted with that. But I just, and I got the job of cleaning up the yard for them, or the cutting the grass. Just to, this part-time.
Right, help out.
Supplement my regular
Right.
work I was doing. And Mrs.
I
Lester,
wish I had Susie with him instead of the dog.
The postmistress.
Mrs. Lester was
Yeah.
the postmistress over there then. And after she, whether she died or what happened, I don't
Yes, she
recall.
did. And then her daughter took over the.
Yeah, yeah.
Most people die.
But then, I don't recall just how Mr. Emmons got it then, at his store. He was running a store there.
Right, right.
Oh, incidentally, Pearson was running a store there too, up here in,
Where the
right
firehouse is.
By the firehouse is now. That's the beginning of my living in South Brunswick. And we lived over there.
Oh, for Pete's
well,
sake.
I
When
guess
you
it must
get me
have been,
through that tale.
I must have been 2 years we lived over there. Then I moved over, I had a chance to buy this place over this side of the church. $3,500. And that was, the war had started then.
Now don't tell me you were divorced, well I know you didn't.
And they had me in 1A and then they changed it over to 3A and I was all right then. But anyway, I went to, I was working at Plainsboro for the farm implements. I can't think of his name now either. Anyway, after that,
This old house is gone.
I was
since
doing
got
welding
started
over there,
doing
welding for them.
anything here. I haven't been able to walk across the floor without help.
And the work got slow over there, so I decided I better get something else to do. So at that time they were hiring the government jobs, where
I pray when
I went to
go
New
bed
Brunswick,
that God will take me home while I'm asleep.
and I got it,
I used to go,
and I got it.
I had so many friends, I don't know where they got to now.
I got a job over in I got an advance in that, and they put me into inspecting the vehicles, you know, writing up the work orders for the boys to work on them. And I was over there for 7 years during the war and after the war. And of course, then I was acquainted
How long
with.
is that tale gonna last?
Well, it's still on South Brunswick. That's what they want to know about.
Well, good gracious.
And then I went
I'm gonna show him one of the prettiest girls he's ever seen.
Yeah, you showed me.
Did you?
Yes.
Did you see Carson?
Yes, it's beautiful.
She
Yes.
is beautiful.
Well,
She was here not long ago, too. You saw it, didn't you?
Yeah, she's a beautiful girl.
She is.
both of us joined the church up
She
there.
was my first husband's daughter, you know.
And I got acquainted with
Well, she's
nearly everybody in the township.
my daughter, but
And it was small then.
Claude was his father.
We
You
had.
never did know my first husband, did you?
Yes,
You
I did.
He was a great musician, I know that.
Well, now getting back to.
You were at the church. You were
Right.
just
Yeah.
starting at the church. Who was the minister then?
We had Reverend Eccles.
Right?
He was sharing
Oh,
this
boy.
church with Plainsbury.
He was
Correct.
there so long.
And
I guess he was there till he died.
then
I don't know.
after that, we were depending upon the students at the
Seminary.
seminary from Princeton. And we had boys from all over everywhere, young fellows. And we had two fellows there from Africa. And one was from French Cameroon.
I just love that picture.
Uh,
I lost it one time and I prayed the Lord to let me find it and I found it the next morning.
Francois Accord was his
That's,
name.
that's
From
Teddy's
the
youngest
French name.
son.
And the other one
He's
was,
older
it was
than that now, but I think
from,
he was a little dog. That's
I think he was from Kenya
Brian.
in Africa. His name was Joseph Chaga. I got a book here, someplace that this Francois Accord
I don't
wrote
know
while
what
he
I'm
was
gonna
in
do with all this.
seminary. And they were just part-time, you know, just filled in. And we had so many different ones. And finally, we wound up with getting a full-time minister up here in our
Oh,
church.
I had one of his
We were
pictures.
very small at that
Oh,
time.
there.
And
That picture was right in front of me.
we chose Reverend Maltby. So he's been there ever since.
Very good man.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Good choice.
Yep.
Well, I was involved too then with the Democrat
Oh, shoot.
Party,
I don't know why I keep all that
working.
stuff.
I was president of the Democrat Club here. We met in the firehouse right here.
I don't usually set my cards, one of them right here, but one of my special friends sent me that.
And I worked the party until.
You have a special place in my heart, and I love that. And I set it up here where I can look at it all the time.
Would you like to know who was the township committeeman? at the
Sure.
time?
Yes.
Well, it was Reichler, not the young Reichler, but the old man Reichler. You remember him?
Yes, I sure do.
And we had Lester Shaw.
You know John Murphy,
And,
don't you?
Oh, yes.
We had one more
I go
there.
to his
I
church
can't
now.
just
When I
place
can
him now,
go.
which one it was.
It's very seldom I can go.
But the police department then was
I don't know why I put all this stuff over here.
just, well, I think they had just two police in the township.
Who were they?
One was
Who were they?
Freddie Holston and Bill Boris. That was on the part-time. He was a fingerprint expert.
Right. Right.
And you're familiar with all of those fellows. You met them.
Does he live?
MacDonald at Kingston.
Right.
Kind of down in the
Huh?
That was a police department.
Down on
Yeah.
George's Road.
In
near
Dean's.
Is it
Near Dean's.
not far from Plainsboro?
Right.
Oh. I used to live in Plainsboro too. I lived in Plainsboro when I met him.
Mhm.
I remember where I was when he walked in.
When did you? I remember when I was a kid, you had a garage here that you worked on cars.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, now that, I get to that. Mrs.
Why don't you write a book so
Luca.
you give it to people? and
Excuse
let 'em
me,
read it?
Excuse me, Mr. Hunt.
doing
Did you buy this house from Mr. Luker?
Mrs. Luca.
Mrs. Luker.
Mrs. Luca.
Yeah, Mr. Luca was dead.
I used to come across here and work in the garden. I used to dig that garden for her out there.
Mhm.
All of that garden, you know.
Mhm.
And one day she told me, she says, I think I'm going to sell this place. And I was also doing some work. That was after the war, you know. They wanted to transfer me over to Belmead. And I didn't want to, you know, go over there. And so I left the government then. And
You didn't tell
I
him.
started in doing my own
Hey,
work.
you didn't tell him your wife worked too.
And
I taught school all around here.
and I
I was a school teacher.
started work over right the next door to me there, Van Sice,
Mhm. Mhm.
in a little garage of his there. And then when I met Mrs. Luca and was working with her, and I told her then, I said, well, if you'll give me first refusal if you're going
And
to
she
sell.
did, so that,
And about 2 weeks, she told me
I
was
think
over
we're
here, and
gonna
she
have to
told me,
move before long if we
So,
got those.
I'm going
something
to
done for that.
I'm going to sell the place.
That lights are,
And I
may
said,
pull away from up there.
She told me how much it would be. I said, 7,500. So I said, all right, if you just give me time to go to the bank, I said, I'll have to get the mortgage through. And she said, well, I'd like to just live here with you for a while and to, get things straightened out. I said, that'll be fine. So she lived here with us until she went to Cranberry then.
Mhm.
And
What year was that, Mr.
That-
Hunt? Do you remember?
that must have been
No, you don't know, and I
in
don't
the,
either,
no,
so.
I don't
don't
know
try to
exactly,
say.
but it must have been in the
1940s. Isn't that what you said?
40s or early 50s, right?
no, it was
I feel like I've been living here all my life.
because
That's
My
good.
Right after the war,
My
right?
mother died
yeah,
upstairs in the
right
bed
after
I'm
the war. It
sleeping
must have
with.
been I didn't live long over across the street there, you know. But it must have been close to 1950, somewhere around.
Yeah, somewhere around 1950.
That's what you thought.
You was a baby.
Yeah, I was a little boy. I used to come over here almost every day.
And you went to sleep one day under the sofa or something.
Right, and had everybody looking for me, right?
We were looking all over thinking maybe he'd gotten to the railroad and
Oh, my goodness.
and in the meantime, your mother, I guess, saved
He's a
Teddy too.
good-looking man.
Because I was mowing the lawn one day over there,
I should remember him, but I don't.
and I was taking care of Teddy and cutting the grass.
Mhm.
And he slipped away. I didn't know he was gone. I just got busy there. And Mrs. Santawassa came up with Teddy. He had wandered down to the railroad track.
Wow.
And she saw him and brought him back up there.
Well, I'd
Yeah,
miss the
that's-
trains if I couldn't hear them go by. At night I
Right.
hear them go by. I feel like I know where I am then. Sometimes when I wake up in the night, I don't know where I am.
Well, I was, as I said before, I was, involved with the Democrat Party. And
Mhm.
I attended all the meetings and everything with me.
How am I a Republican and you a
So-
Democrat?
So,
My father, Republican now because he was a strict Democrat.
so
my father and mother, they lived in Virginia.
The Board of Health then
But my mother
consisted
died
of
upstairs in the bed I'm
the
sleeping
Township
in.
Committee
And I remember the morning that she died.
plus
I
Dr.
was
Smith,
sleeping in down the hall a little ways
and
from
they had to,
And when I got up, I saw her sitting up in the bed, and I went down and put my arm around her. I said, Mama, what are you doing sitting up here? She says, I feel so good, Annie. And that's the first time she'd ever called me Annie, and my name is Annie, but I changed it. They named me Annie Elizabeth, and I changed it to Elizabeth Ann because that goes together better.
well, let me go ahead and please. So
Huh, that tail, don't it ever
They had-
have an end?
they had to have a sanitary inspector in the township, you know. And they were working with Franklin Township or someplace anyway.
Hunt got
They
that
asked
bed
me
back there
if
for
I
me,
would,
but I like to go upstairs. I
take the-
feel safer
You know.
up in my bed.
And I had to have a license to do it.
Mhm.
So they told me that they would pay for the, if I would go to Rutgers and take up the necessary course, you know.
Mhm.
So I went to Rutgers and took up that course, and then went to the state and took the examination, both written and oral test, and for some reason they passed me, I don't know. But that was only part-time, and it wasn't
I know good well you people
a
get
hard
out of
job,
here.
it was
That's-
just appointed,
I don't
and I'd have to put in
appreciate
5
that
years
stuff.
and I would be on tenure.
Mhm.
And then the Republicans took over before that 5 years was up. And they, Warren Palmetto, you remember him?
I remember the name, but I don't remember him.
And he was
From
head
Dean's?
Of the, yeah, he was head of the Republican Party at that time. And the Republicans took over, and they hired different people, you know.
Mhm.
And they had some farmer that Palmetto had named for the what job that I was doing.
Mhm.
And he wasn't qualified.
I got stuff back there in that room. I wish I
So-
could get back there so I could see what it is.
They had to, they come to me later, you know, and asked me if I would take the job again. I said no. I said, you turned me down. I said, I'm not interested now. I said, I was busy here then. I had plenty of work to do here anyway.
Mhm.
So I didn't bother
Is that
with
gatehouse still over there like it used to be?
No, it's
How
gone.
about the rotolactor?
Rhodolactor's gone.
The meantime, I got
First
involved
time I ever
with
went up in that
school
place, I
up here.
slid down that banister. I
it.
sure couldn't do it now.
They
Oh, boy.
had me to
All right.
take on the presidency of the PTA up there.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed that. That was really, really nice to be, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as president of the club and meeting, preside at the meetings and everything. And they had me as president of the Democrat Club and president of the of the PTA. Oh,
How did you get to be a Republican?
it kept me busy.
Hey, how did you get to be a Republican
Was
then?
it taking care of the
My daddy would turn
township?
over
That
in
was
his
when I
grave
was,
if he thought
had
that
the
I
two jobs, you know.
vote
as
Republican
sanitary
now.
inspector.
But I don't vote, I can't get out.
I had to write up the permits, you know, for these people that,
I tried to
We're
get a
building.
ballot for me the last time.
and then
Do you like our president we've got now? You do? I don't know enough about him to. I know that not many people do like him though.
that I had got acquainted with George Spillitor and different ones and all around. And I used to go with George picking mushrooms.
Mhm.
Huh, don't
Yep.
that tail have no end?
And now these things,
Holy
these,
Mac, you're telling
the-
your whole life story.
I used
That's what we want to hear.
I used to go
Bullshit.
I used to go with him over. I didn't know much about mushrooms. There was one particular mushroom that I liked, and I knew that it was safe to pick, but I didn't bother anything else but that one particular one. I wanted to grow on poplar wood or poplar stumps. And every time I would run across a stump someplace, I would always look and make sure, you know. And I come across stumps over across Route 1, between that and Kendall, what was then Kendall, not Kendall Park. It was just a dirt road going through there, what wagon road it was.
Right.
And
Oh, boy, I'm getting
you
so
couldn't,
uncomfortable.
I went out in those woods there, and I found these
Why
huge
didn't you stay
stumps.
there?
I said, golly, and it was chestnut stumps. And long about the time for chestnuts to get ripe, I went over there. There were sprigs growing up, and I picked chestnuts off of those sprigs that were in that wood there. And there were several of those big trees that he had cut down, you know, so that there was a disease that killed the chestnut trees. And I discovered a spring over there, right across from what is now the first aid building.
Have you got that thing
There
on yet?
There was a spring there, and I went there one day. I stopped by there to get water one day. I was thirsty, you know, walking through the woods there.
Huh, why don't you let him talk some?
And I saw
I've
this.
heard these tales so many
I saw
times.
these.
But we haven't.
I saw these
I know,
boards
but I know you're not interested in me.
just underneath the leaves. It was fall of the year.
You got a bed back there for me, but I don't sleep in it. I
And,
go to my bed upstairs because I feel safer up
I
there.
scraped those leaves off, and it was mesh working, dirt buried in the ground, and ready to make whiskey.
Little hooch.
Yeah. You see, and there was an old colored man that lived in a shack right not far from that, and he was no doubt there to watch out for things. So he was walking down towards the spring there, and I started talking with him, and I told him, I said, well, I said, I know about this now. I said, I'm not going to say anything about it. Maybe I should have, but I didn't do it. And I didn't know.
Here, put
using
my
that
legs up across your knees.
water from that
I'm
spring
miserable here.
to for the
Thank you.
worm, you know, make the.
Why don't sit down on my feet now?
Oh,
Put them in your lap.
okay.
I know you can do something. Well, don't show my butt. He's getting the picture.
No, right on Mr. Hunt.
Meantime,
Oh, boy.
my brother, you know, was living here then. Along,
Tom.
yeah.
Oh, you're Tom, too, didn't you?
And he discovered another place where they were making whiskey in South Brunswick Township. And that was a brook that only ran in the wintertime. In summertime it dried up. But that was just across from what is now the
I
shopping
can't imagine
center.
Plainsboro don't have their road
There was
electric.
a brook that ran down
What
through
do they do with the
woods
cows?
there. And there was
Or do they still have
there
cows?
was still set up there.
Just individual farms.
Oh,
So
it's not like it used to be. Oh, I used to.
had
like to
that
go
been
there,
in
stand
Virginia,
up there and watch that old thing go
they
around
were
with the
really
cows on
rough
it.
on them down there.
Yeah, right.
They
The
know,
first time
no
I
doubt,
went up there, I remember.
the
I
officials knew
stayed
about
down
these
that bank.
things because they'd get a little whiskey out of it, I guess. They never said anything about it, I guess.
If you don't shut up, I'll
Mr. Hunt,
have
when you came, all the old cars and buses in the garage,
Now, the Sid Smalley then was running the bus,
Uh-huh.
and he was still keeping the bus in the garage there.
Uh-huh.
Well, when I got the place, he moved out then.
Mm-hmm.
So I was using the garage then and doing
But there were none of the old cars were left in there for
no,
Uh-huh.
they had an old Cadillac, I believe it was,
Uh-huh.
but they had just gotten rid of that. I just missed it.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
That was, I don't know how old that was.
I lived in Plainsboro when I first moved up there.
There's a lamp over there. There's a story about that. Some people came here several years after I bought the place. Mrs. Luca was, of course, gone then. And asked if they knew anything about a chandelier, you know, like that. I'd never heard of it. But there was a lamp down in this basement where you could put kerosene in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I
You know,
got to
people-
looking at that, and I said, there must be some other parts of that somewhere. And I went up in the attic, you know, I'd never been up in that attic. There's only just one hole there you can lift up. And part of that was the crystals was up in the attic. Well, no, they never did come back, so I had took that lamp and put it together with the parts from down in the basement,
It's been there ever since I can remember.
and no, it wasn't up there then.
Well, let me tell them something. I put
Well,
those
yeah.
caps over that window up there.
So that,
Uh,
I don't know how old that is, but that's a real old lamp, that is.
That's a real nice
Kerosene,
piece.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I had it transferred over to
I'll tell you
You
something.
can,
I used to
you
keep
can
this
see where
house-
the stack
I
went up
used to
there.
keep this house nice and clean too,
and
but I can't do it no more.
Now we can't do it anymore.
Nothing I can do.
as part of those crystals, there were some of the crystals were missing. And we, Ann's sister lived in Frederick, Maryland. And so we used to visit there quite often. We'd go down in Frederick.
I used to stay there a lot.
And she had this little box with crystals that came from the Johnstown flood. And she gave us those crystals. And I took those crystals with the balance of the lamp and took it over to the guy that was running the hardware store right over where the food place, right across
Oh,
from the
these are so
where the
cheap.
ShopRite was. There used to be a
These are so
store there,
rough.
hardware store. And he was going to fix it for me. So I kept waiting and waiting, and finally he went over and he
You
got
got
to it
that thing on
and he
all the
cleaned it
time,
up.
hadn't he?
and put it together. But he didn't have the crystals.
It's a good thing you don't have the
Just a few of
voice to
the
it too.
crystals.
So
So
get what he said.
he couldn't find the box. And he knew where they took those crystals, you see, with the box, because that box was an antique box, that thing.
That's my youngest
And I never did get
two
that back.
sons up there.
That's
They
too
grown
bad.
up now.
But
They grown up and married now.
he got some artificial crystals. And
And
part of those
The
artificial,
youngest one now.
you don't even know it.
No, you can't tell.
No. But anyway, he got those artificial crystals, and he took the real crystals and gave me those artificial.
That's too bad.
Yeah. Well,
But it's a nice piece.
Well, they look just as good.
I don't know.
That hole up there is going to be fixed someday. A squirrel is going to come down in it. How did that squirrel get down here one time?
He fell through in the hole in there.
Oh, he was coming down here and come right up by me.
Well, that's a recent thing that happened. Oh. Oh well.
Oh, Well, why didn't you write a book and then you could just give people a book?
Getting back to the centennial that we're going to have. I think I've mentioned this to you. Mrs. Kessler, when they moved into this old house over here.
The Marcy farm.
Yeah, who was that? Marcy farm?
The Marcy farm.
I don't know. I've got a lot of the old mortgages of this place, and there was Higgins families who were involved in this property here at one time, and I think another place, and I just wondered if it was over there.
No.
Because the Higgins are the old family, you know, they've been around for...
Who lived over
in
here?
the beginning of...
Hunt? Who
Monmouth
lived
Gulf.
over next door to us when we first moved here?
The Pennells.
Pennells lived
I
Well,
thought they lived on the other side.
there. That was an older place than this.
Yes, the Marcy farm was
Yeah.
very old.
And she was down in the basement. They had a rock chimney down there. And she thought that noticed one of the rocks was loose, and she pulled that out. And behind that rock was a canceled
Yeah, you were
$20,000
telling right.
note wrapped with, it was canceled, of course, you know, signed by Alexander Hamilton.
Really?
Yep. And they had with it a beautiful picture of a new stagecoach that they had just put on sale in London, England. And they were in that chimney. I've just been curious ever since. Why were those things hidden in that chimney? And who was in that house with that note?
I don't know who owned it before the Marcys, but maybe Higgins did. But I only remember the Marcys being there, and I remember the farmhouse being torn down.
Well, anyway,
Does anybody remember who used to live across the street?
My
there?
grandmother.
Yeah?
My grandmother and my grandfather.
Well, what was your grandmother's name?
Ryan.
Oh, well, I used to live next door to us in that house right next door.
Right next door to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I used to take care of that old lady that lived in front of me then, Mrs. Grundyke.
Right. Across the street.
Yeah. I used to go over and take
And then it was next to Grandma Ryan was Mrs. Hutchinson. Where the Hutchinsons, they were here when you moved here.
Yeah.
And the Grundykes and I don't know who, the Bennetts at one time. That was your sister, wasn't it, Ann?
Yeah, that was her sister.
Yeah, they lived in the house next to my mom's,
Yeah, right next
where
door.
I was born. I was born there.
She lived right down across from that store that used to be down there.
Who lived there?
Effie.
No, she lived over here too.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yes.
I guess I wasn't here then.
She lived over here, and she lived up at Deshevsky's place.
I only remember.
And then
I-
she moved down to the old place down here. That's where she died.
And Arthur Ross.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, across
That's
from
Arthur
the
was
only-
killed in
that's
the
only
service.
place
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
her living. I guess
World War
that's
II.
when I first started coming around.
That's right.
And he lived there with her.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing too, I was thinking about the Indians, what part they played here. But I understand that some of the material that came from the library I have back there, that shows that some of these highways that we have here now were old Indian trails. And I was told this by one of my members of the Lions Club. Coincidentally, we organized that Lions Club, and your father was a charter member, myself, and
Hunt,
Kurt Conover.
Hunt. What was that store named? Who?
Kish.
Kish.
Yeah, Mrs. Kish used to run this
Across
store.
the street.
I don't remember her name.
Yeah. Julius and she
yeah, I
had two
used to-
sons.
Alex.
Three sons.
3 sons.
Yeah.
I used to go there for
Julius.
One is still over in
Charleston
Charleston
Place.
Place. Yeah,
That's
he's
John.
John, yeah,
John.
right.
Well, the other one lived down here. And I don't know where the other boy is.
He's on George's Road,
Yeah.
Alex.
What's
Well,
that?
anyway, I'll get back to the Indians.
I wish you'd get to the
Lisa
end.
was told that part of that South Brunswick was in that trade at that time as an Indian chief that owned all of that, had control of all of that territory over
If
there,
he could write a book, he
Kendall
might
Park.
be able to sell it.
and all of
Oh,
Rocky Hill, and all of that territory around there. And Higgins traded the chief an old sow with a litter of pigs for all of that territory. And I wanted to go and interview the Higgins that lived over there. That's why I wanted to get up, and I haven't had an opportunity to do that.
Is that in Kingston?
Yes,
Mhm.
there's no doubt it's the same, because I saw some of the graveyards, the old graveyard on Old Stage Road,
Mm-hmm.
and the Higgins were buried there.
Mhm.
I looked at some of the tombstones in that place, and that must be some of the Jedediah Higgins was that man's name. Jedediah Higgins.
my mother died upstairs in the bed. I'm sleeping
I
right now.
would just would like to follow up on some of those things, but I just don't have it.
I
Don't
wish
have
I
the
could.
time.
I wish I could get back down in Virginia and see
And
what become my old home I lived in. I think it burned down.
I'd like to tell you too about going up through what is now Kendall Park. I went through there. I used to go occasionally. There used to be a little store over there with a gas pump, with a hand pump,
Hmm.
with a glass globe.
Uh-huh.
You've probably seen
Mhm.
some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
your
the pump
your
5 gallons of gas.
your
Dump it
garage,
into your
Hunt. Your garage was right up on the hill from that. You remember when you had
Yeah.
the garage over there,
Mhm.
don't you?
I went through there one day. I got stuck right in the middle of what is now Kendall Park. I thought I'd never get out of that place, but I finally got out. And I went over and got 5 gallons of
I
gas.
didn't know he could talk so much.
And I
He
had to go
don't
to
talk to me
Princeton.
like
I had to go to Princeton.
Ah.
And I went from there to Princeton and never met a single car.
Hmm.
That's on 27, what is now.
Mhm.
Well, you can't do that now.
Well, that was when I first bought my car, 1935 Plymouth. And I got that from a used car, of course, from Turning Motors, used to be over in
Mhm.
Princeton.
Mhm.
And I paid it off, and $65 I paid for that car.
Hmm.
And that's my first car that I bought here in Newton, in South Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
Will you please end that tale?
Well,
I'd rather hear them
Mhm.
talk a little bit.
Yes.
So patient.
Mm-hmm.
they came for the purpose of finding out
Well, that you remember, right?
all that remember on these things.
Well, we appreciate you doing this. It was very interesting. Nice to see you again, you and Ann.
Yeah, it's good
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to have you come and have
Thank-
me talk over some of these things.
Thank you very much.
So much that has
Mhm.
taken place. I'd like to,
Well, you should have took pictures, movies.
and so much progress has been since we even moved here. And every way, there's been so much progress,
Mm-hmm.
both here and everywhere.
Mhm.
But it seems like I've gone downhill.
Seen a lot of history.
I met him in Plainsboro.
Mhm.
And he voted with me, he and
As presidents,
Kenny
you know,
Flanders.
I remember the presidents from Woodrow Wilson all the way up to the present day.
You
And
didn't
that's
see
something.
him, though.
Yeah. No, of course I didn't see them.
Do you like our president now?
Yes, I do.
I do too. So many people don't like him or
You
didn't
sure
like
don't.
him. I don't know whether they've gotten to where they like him now or not.
We hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.